Welcome to another in the Florida Tech Pioneer Series. Today we welcome Mr. Bill Jurgens. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here. Just take a minute and just talk a little bit about your family background and how you came to Florida Tech.
Well, it's real interesting. A lot of people think that I'm from out of town, but actually since the third grade I lived in Melbourne. And I went off to Jacksonville University and studied biology as well as participated on their rowing team. And one weekend when I was back in Melbourne, I was going across the causeway and I saw this race going on, a rowing regatta. So I stopped and saw Robert Dunlap, who was the advisor to the rowing program that had just started in 1968. And I pulled over and Bob was taking off his shirt for the finish line and waving it for the teams that went by, and Florida Southern won and Florida Tech was second. And so I think it was then that Bob knew that I had some experience, and having none himself, every time he saw me, he encouraged me to come back to Melbourne. And so I came back to Melbourne on a visit and looked into the school system, and they hired me. And then I worked part-time as a volunteer for the Florida Tech rowing program and lived at the Anchorage. They provided me housing, and so that was the start. And then the next year, the university offered me a full-time job, and that was the beginning. And I always told Mr. Dunlap and Jerry Cooper, Dr. Cooper, that I would be there 1 year. So each time in subsequent years that Dr. Cooper saw me, he'd always laugh and said, "Well, I see you're at Florida Tech a little longer than a year." So time does fly when you're having fun.
So you were one of the folks who were there at sort of the beginning of Florida Tech athletics, especially crew.
You know, at the time I didn't see it that way, but now, 37 years later, I look back and realize that the athletics program began in approximately 1963, and that the influence back then was Dr. Ray Work, who was the Vice President for Student Affairs, and a good old friend of mine, Andy Simonik, who has passed away, but for many years we were very close friends. Andy played for the Philadelphia Phillies on the Whiz Kids team, and was an all-star catcher for them. So he lived in Melbourne and basically helped start the baseball program in 1963. So from that start, it grew rapidly, and of course we built the later to be known as the Hedgecock Gymnasium in around 1958, and had a basketball team. Actually, I meant 68, sorry. And then in 1969, I came on board as the rowing coach. And gee, time, as I said earlier, time really flies when you're having fun. I think, during all the years that I coached at Florida Tech and worked at Florida Tech, it was always the challenge and the opportunity to do well. And when we didn't succeed one year, it was always the next year, try harder, and it was always right there. It was like a carrot out there to achieve it. All it took was a lot of hard work. So it was a lot of fun, and the championships came and went, and then we aspired to greater things. And I've really enjoyed being a part of the athletics program. When I came on board as the athletic director in 1976, in the spring of '76, a goal was to have a broad-based program. I remember being quoted in the newspaper at the time, the Melbourne Times, in a little story about a broad base. And it hasn't really been until Dr. Katniss became president, and he added the 5 sports approximately 5 years ago, that we really are providing a broad-based program here at Florida Tech. It's exciting to see it took that many years to get to where we're at. But we offer a sport in every championship that the Sunshine State Conference offers, which is 15. And our goal now, obviously, is to continue the success that we once had, and we've had a lot of great teams over the years, And in 91, 92, we won the conference overall men's championship. And I'm really hoping that in the near future we'll be doing that for the women's programs as well.
Yeah, that's super. Now, I would be remiss as an interviewer, because I know future generations are going to want to ask this question. Over the years, there has been a discussion on the possibilities of Florida Tech football. Was that ever something that came up during your tenure?
Well, it has. It has surfaced a couple of times, and it's always been from a student participation perspective, as far as students would be interested in participating at Florida Tech, not only the ones that are here, but the ones that played football in high school and would like to continue playing varsity sports. It never really came to fruition because of the lack of other teams in Florida having football programs, but I believe that will change over time. I'm hopeful that it will be. I'm all for expanding. I know some people would not necessarily feel that way, but I am. I have a grandson that's going to be playing football, and I would just as soon, he's just about 9 years old, that when he's ready to go to college, I'd love to have a team here. And I realize what it would take. You know, it would take other colleges having an interest. It would also mean that Florida Tech is growing. You know, this is something that Dr. Katniss doesn't mention or talk about, and I probably shouldn't be talking about it now, but you asked the question, and I say I'd love to have a football program, and at the right time, when we're in a position that we can provide a quality program, and that's important.
Great. Now, one of the things that the Florida Tech Athletics has always had are great student athletes. Who are some of the folks that kind of stand out in your mind? Young people who came here and played their sport and played it well, but also hit the books.
You know, we've had so many of those. It is a real pleasure being associated with Florida Tech Athletics, because I do not see what some of the athletic directors see at other institutions. I've heard some of them say that some of their student athletes wouldn't go to classes if given the opportunity, and that would never be the case here. I like it when our coaches say that our student athletes help bring up the average of the student body at Florida Tech. And I'm exceptionally proud of the fact that our retention rate is high, because that says we're doing the right thing. As far as you know, students that are doing well, you know, on more than one occasion, the top student in the university academically was an outstanding athlete, led our teams either as a captain or in the conference in some statistical ranking. So I think it's a natural. Even this past year, we had students with 3.96 that are leaders on their team, and they're in very difficult fields. I consider every program that we have here at Florida Tech a challenge, and I realize that it takes a lot of commitment. But the way I see athletics, and maybe I didn't see it when I first started in it, sometimes it takes a number of years to really see it for its true value. I see athletics as a way for, I see it as a teaching tool, and a way for the student athletes to learn things such as good relationships on the team, learning how to work well with one another, overcoming adversity, seeing losing not as just a loss, but as a learning experience that will help you become a better person or a better athlete, as it is in athletic. So over the years, I see athletics as part of the learning process here at Florida Tech. And I think that is, it has been proven out over the years. Our student athletes come here because they love academics and they love athletics, and we're able to bring those two together and offer a very valuable experience and allow them to excel in both.
Now, over the years, many times Florida Tech athletics teams, it's fair to say, were kind of considered underdogs. Do you remember matches or games that Florida Tech teams won that they weren't supposed to and upset some people?
Well, I, thinking back over the years, I don't remember as many of those. I remember our teams not having a chance and being very competitive in a lot of contests. You would have to say that every national championship that we've competed in and done well, we've been an underdog. I look back to the time that our soccer team competed in the national championship in 1988. Surely we weren't expected to win that thing. I mean, we're going up against teams that had previously won the national championships. We didn't have a full-time trainer. We didn't have a sports information director. We had a number of volunteer coaches. We had a volunteer coach by the name of Rick Stotler, who kept telling everyone in the athletics department that he was going to win a national championship. And the other coaches, quite frankly, sort of laughed at the thought of winning a national championship after just a few years of coaching. But a lot can be said for determination and expectations and hard work. And when you put those ingredients together and really work at it and have a purpose, then it can happen. And in 1988, it did happen. It happened in Northridge, California, and what an event that was. Watching in the stands, there were 5 of us from Florida Tech, and there were over 3,000, close to 4,000 fans from University of California, Northridge. And we beat them in that time, and I'll never forget that experience because that was our first NCAA national championship, and how can you forget that?
No.
And then, of course, there's been many other situations. I don't remember the ones that over the years, I don't remember the ones so much that we upset. I remember the ones that we thought we could win and we just missed, and we came back and worked all the harder to achieve success. I remember all those and how the time just flew by till we got another opportunity to prove ourselves, and we did, and we won. And I remember all those and the athletes and the attitudes. Someone walked into my office 2 days ago. His name's Ken Watson. He graduated back in 1972. And I remember Ken, he was the captain of the rowing team when I became the coach. And I remember his comments. He said, we're going to beat Rollins. And every day it was beat Rollins. And I just love that attitude. I respect Rollins, but it's nice to have that competitive rivalry and respect for them. And we did beat Rollins in 1974, and at that time Jerry Cooper bought everyone on the team little trophies because he knew how hard and how long we had worked to win that first state championship and how much of a goal it was. So, over the years it's been a tremendous challenge. People say what a disadvantage it is to be at Florida Tech where the academics are strong, and I always discount that. Maybe I'm looking at the more favorable side of the kind of student athletes we have, but we have the student athletes that are looking for a strong education and have a great commitment for athletics, and I think it's an advantage. And I feel very confident that in the near future we will again be doing very well as we have in the past in varsity athletics because of who we are, because we are Florida Tech, and we are an outstanding university, which in my opinion should lead to outstanding athletic teams.
Now, over the almost 40 years that you've been involved with Florida Tech athletics, how do you think student athletes have changed, or have they?
Well, that's a good question. I think that that is a long span. And I think that our whole education system in America has changed. I think it's preparing students for college, and there's more of a commitment to the university system than there was when I first started. Not that at that time the students that I was working with, they were committed. The students were committed to academics and athletics. But I think that now when I look at the student athletes that we have, there's very few that aren't here for academic reasons. We have over 300 varsity athletes, and they're here for academics. But they're also here for athletics. As I said, I'm really glad. I don't like it when I hear someone say that that athletics is a separate entity, or athletics feels like they should have some advantage. I believe it's part of the institution, and it's part of the learning process, and I really think it's part of academics. You know, it's just the field of play and the experiences that they gain in athletics. I think that if we do things right in the athletics program at Florida Tech, that winning will take care of itself, that the successes and the national championships will be there if we do things right. They won't be there all the time. You know, we're not saying that we're going to monopolize championships, but we'll be providing our athletes with the chance. And I say that, you know, I guess you could ask the question, well, what makes you think that you could be more successful at Florida Tech than other institutions? And I say it because of the strong academic program that we can attract people in majors that some institutions cannot. I mean, we have an aeronautics program here. Not a lot of institutions can claim that type of program, not to mention marine biology, all the engineering programs that we have, business. We have so many programs to offer. When I first started at Florida Tech, that wasn't the case. We didn't have a biological science program. We didn't have the business or the aeronautics. And it was more challenging, but I believe now that we're in a position that we can attract the types of students that will allow us to have outstanding teams and will afford them great experiences in athletics. Sure. So I think that is a reason we'll do well at Florida Tech. The other reason is that I believe we strongly value the type of leadership that we have from our coaches. And we have some outstanding coaches at Florida Tech, 3 of whom are graduates of Florida Tech. And so we're looking for those coaches that value, obviously, academics, and they have a strong commitment and a passion for athletics. Because without that passion, they will never be able to work to the level that they need to be as successful. So with the institution that we have, and with the outstanding coaches, and with the support that we receive from the institution, I see no reason why we shouldn't be right at the very top. Not that we have everything. I learned this a long time ago in the first few years that I worked at Florida Tech, is that I didn't have all the resources, but I could never use that as an excuse. And the school always wanted the programs that I worked for and worked with to be successful. I never thought otherwise. I always believed that the university wanted us to be successful. Never did I ever hear otherwise, as we worked as hard as we could to do everything we could to be successful. And I still believe that is very true today. We have to be resourceful, and our alumni athletes who have gone through our programs know that, know what they experience, and fortunately are willing to give back and help those as they were helped along the way from other alumni. So I've really enjoyed the challenges that we had. I would say that the reason I've been athletic director for as many years is that it has provided me with some great challenges, and those challenges, working with a team of committed people, we've been able to accomplish a lot. I'm very proud of what we have. Our coaches are proud of the institution, and that attitude is conveyed to our student athletes, and they perform exceptionally well as a result of that. And that's why we're here. They know we're here to help them to be the best they can be.
Sure. Now, everybody who comes and does an interview in this program, we ask them to think about what they would want future generations, Florida Tech students, athletes, faculty, staff, what we'd want them to know about their experiences here. This is your chance to send a message to folks 50 years from now, 100 years from now. What would you like them to know about you and the Florida Institute of Technology?
Well, I think that it is very clear that whether it's 5 years from now or 50 years from now, is that Florida Tech provides a family environment, and that it is, as a student athlete coming to Florida Tech, they'll find that there'll be a lot of people that are concerned about their well-being and that will take interest in them. The family environment that we have here is the reason that I am here. I enjoy the small college environment. I enjoy to be able to provide a service to our student athletes. And I know that that is the kind of experience that will mean a lot to them. Obviously, the attention and the education that they get. I would also like to say that there's a lot of diversity at Florida Tech, and to meet people from different nationalities and to understand their culture is a great benefit and a great education to them as well. And because of the type of community we have here at Florida Tech, is that they'll feel close to it, and that they should take advantage of being as close as they can and understanding as much as they can about all aspects of the university, because it's truly a university that has a lot of great things going on, and to be as involved as they can, because that's where their experiences, that is where they gain the most by experiencing a lot of different things.
All right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think what I would like to say is that over the years, working with Florida Tech, there have been a number of people that have had a great impact on the athletics program, and there are literally hundreds, but there's a few that sort of stand out along the way, like Ray Work, the first Vice President for Student Affairs, has a building named after him. Undoubtedly the president, the founding president, Dr. Jerry Cooper, and he has a few buildings that will be named after him, but he contributed a lot to the athletics program. Robert Dunlap, who started the Rowan program, he came here as an assistant to the president and had been chairman of the Florida Nuclear Commission. It was great knowing him and getting his support over the years. Andy Semenek, a finer person I have never met than Andy Semenek. I've never heard him say an unkind word, and for over 30 years, he was, over 40 years, he was close to the university. If you were to count all that he has given over the years in sports memorabilia and contributions, it would fill up a building. He has given so much. So Joe Dollar with the basketball program and the training room and all that he did to support the program, it's just unbelievable. He had been a former Chicago Bears trainer, and so he is definitely one that spoke his mind, and it was a fun being around him. But he too did a lot for the athletics program at Florida Tech. To talk about a few coaches, I'll talk about those who are no longer coaching with us as opposed to our present coaching staff, but Rick Stotler, I mentioned earlier about Rick Stotler and his attitude. I thought that was, gave us all the spirit that we can at Florida Tech win at the very highest level. And he did so, and he did so more than once in the soccer program. And Les Hall, who retired after 25 years, he was a model coach. I always thought of him as a model coach. He worked hard. He produced outstanding student athletes. When the baseball players graduated, you could see their development over the years, and you knew they were going to do well in life. And of course, some of his successes, be it winning the South Atlantic NCAA Division II Regional and going on to the NCAA World Series in Montgomery, Alabama. Sure. That was an outstanding accomplishment. And Percy Hedgecock. Percy Hedgecock was the individual who had been the mayor of Satellite Beach, who as a member of the Athletic Advisory Council said, we need athletic scholarships, and I'm going to commit, this is in 1984, I'm going to commit 15,000, I'm going to raise 15,000, and we're going to go out there and match that. So we had a commitment of $60,000 to athletics from Percy Hedgecock. He was a person that believed strongly in what athletics could do for young people, and to have him on board and to have him commit to the scholarship assistance. It was that commitment that preceded the great successes that we had in basketball and baseball and soccer. I mean, it just sort of coincided. It was that kind of support that helped us do well. And in basketball, it was a sport that people for years thought that couldn't do well at Florida Tech. And then we had this Division II coach from New England come down, Tom Folliard, Sr., and take us to the NCAA playoffs. And we had outstanding victories against UMass and Boston College and Coastal Carolina. It was an exciting time. How exciting was it? Well, if you can imagine the Hedgecock Gym that is filled to capacity with about 1,200 sitting down, another 400 standing, cram it in the hallways and on the sideline, and another 200 outside the door trying to get in locked doors because we had no more room. That's excitement.
Sure.
And not to mention some of these people who have committed so much to the program, I would be remiss. And I know that I could, 38 years, a lot of things can happen. And so I could tell you a lot about the many people who have helped. But the one thing I can say for certain is that there were many people that were part of the athletic team who have helped us. Without their help, we wouldn't be where we're at. And I am so grateful to all the administrators, to the alumni, and to our student athletes who have entrusted us with their futures to be a part of the program. I'm thankful to all of them, and it's been a real pleasure. It's been a quick 38 years, and I hope the next 30 or so years that I'm here go by a little slower so I can enjoy it more.
Well, thank you so much for your many years of service to our university and for helping to establish the winning tradition of Florida Tech.
Well, we plan on it continuing. Thank you so much for having me.